Welcome to our channel. Today, we embark on a journey into the hidden architecture of the highly intelligent mind, exploring a paradox that has puzzled psychologists for decades. It is a common misconception that humans are universally social creatures who thrive exclusively on interaction. Yet, for a specific subset of the population, those with exceptional cognitive abilities, social engagement often feels like a draining performance rather than a source of nourishment. We are not discussing mere shyness or social anxiety here. We are analyzing a profound structural difference in how these minds process reality. The preference for solitude in the gifted is often a biological necessity, a mechanism for survival in a world that is simply too loud, too slow, and too superficial for their processing speed.
To understand this phenomenon, we must look at the neuroscience of energy consumption. The human brain, while only accounting for about 2% of total body weight, consumes roughly 20% of the body's energy. In highly intelligent individuals, this metabolic demand is often significantly higher due to increased neuronal density and connectivity. Socializing is an incredibly expensive cognitive task. It requires real-time processing of verbal language, body language, tone, subtext, and emotional cues. For the hyper-analytical mind, which captures 10 times the data of an average mind during a conversation, a casual dinner party is not relaxation. It is an intense, high-fidelity data processing event that rapidly depletes their glucose reserves and cognitive bandwidth.
Precisely, Jane. We call this intellectual overexcitability, a concept originally introduced by the psychologist Kazimir Dombrowski. He theorized that gifted individuals experience the world with a heightened intensity that borders on the painful. Where an average person sees a crowd, the highly intelligent mind perceives a chaotic barrage of sensory input and psychological inconsistencies. They notice the micro-expressions that betray a lie. They hear the logical fallacies in small talk. They feel the dissonance between what is said and what is meant. Solitude, therefore, is not an act of rejection against others, but a form of sensory deprivation tank required to stop this relentless flood of data. It is the only state in which their nervous system can truly downregulate.
This aligns perfectly with the Savannah theory of happiness. Evolutionary psychologists have found a fascinating correlation. While most human beings report increased happiness with more frequent social interaction, highly intelligent individuals actually report lower life satisfaction when they socialize frequently. The theory suggests that while the average brain still operates on the hunter-gatherer software that equates tribe with safety, the highly intelligent brain has evolved past this dependency. They have adapted to solve problems autonomously. Consequently, forcing a high IQ individual into constant social situation is akin to running a high-performance supercomputer on software designed for a pocket calculator. It creates friction, overheating, and eventual system failure.
Let us deepen this by discussing the authenticity filter. Highly intelligent minds possess a relentless drive for truth and depth. They often struggle with the social scripts that lubricate everyday interactions, the how are yous and the discussions about the weather. To a deep thinker, these rituals feel performative and deeply inauthentic. Participating in them requires a form of psychological masking, where the individual must actively suppress their natural intellect to fit in. This suppression is exhausting. Solitude becomes the sanctuary of authenticity. Alone, they do not have to translate their thoughts into simpler language or feign interest in trivialities. In the silence of their own company, they are finally free to be their unadulterated selves without judgment.
That concept of masking has a physiological cost, Alina. We see this in cortisol levels. Studies indicate that when intelligent individuals are forced to engage in surface acting, pretending to feel emotions or interests they do not possess, their stress markers spike. Over time, this chronic misalignment can lead to burnout. Furthermore, we must address the opportunity cost of time. Highly intelligent people are often purpose-driven. They have projects, theories, or creative endeavors that demand immense focus. Every hour spent in obligatory social engagement is an hour lost from their intellectual passions. They view time as a finite resource, and their calculation often concludes that the return on investment for casual socializing is simply too low.
This brings us to the default mode network, or DMN. This is a network of interacting brain regions that is active when a person is not focused on the outside world. It is the seat of daydreaming, envisioning the future, and retrieving memories. Research suggests that the DMN is more highly developed and active in intelligent people. While the average person might get bored alone because their DMN activity is low, the intelligent mind enters a state of rich, vivid cognitive exploration. Their internal world is often more entertaining, complex, and stimulating than the external reality. They are not alone in the traditional sense. They are in dialogue with concepts, history, and possibilities.
Exactly. And we cannot ignore the friendship paradox unique to the gifted. Statistically, finding a peer with a matched cognitive level is rare. If you have an IQ of 130, you are in the top 2% of the population. If you are at 145, you are in the top 0.1%. The probability of walking into a room and finding someone who speaks your language is incredibly low. This leads to a lifetime of feeling mismatched. Many intelligent people eventually decide that the effort required to bridge the communication gap with the average person is more taxing than the loneliness of solitude. They choose the peace of isolation over the labor of translation.
There is also a darker psychological element at play here, the awareness of existential absurdity. High intelligence is frequently correlated with higher rates of existential depression. When you understand the macroeconomic structures, the biological fragility of life, and the vast indifference of the universe, it becomes difficult to engage in cheerful banter at a cocktail party. The intelligent mind is often preoccupied with the why of existence. Solitude allows them to grapple with these heavy philosophical burdens without bringing down the mood of those around them. They retreat to protect others from their darkness, as much as to protect themselves from the other's blinding lightness.
From a medical standpoint, we must also consider the concept of flow states. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi described flow as a state of complete immersion in an activity. Intelligent people crave this state. It is where they feel most alive. However, flow requires uninterrupted continuity. A single knock on the door or a ringing phone can shatter a cognitive structure that took hours to build. This is known as the resumption lag. For a coder, a writer, or a scientist, the fear of interruption becomes a form of anxiety. They seek solitude not just for peace, but to create a fortress around their focus, ensuring their mental architecture remains intact.
Let's pivot to the emotional dimension. High intelligence is often coupled with high empathy, paradoxically. They can be emotional sponges, absorbing the anxieties and vibrations of those around them. Because their processing is so deep, they don't just notice a friend's sadness. They analyze the root cause, predict the outcome, and feel the weight of it. This hyper-empathy leads to compassion fatigue. Being around people is emotionally loud. Solitude is the only way to wring out the sponge. It is a necessary hygiene practice to separate their own emotions from the emotions they have absorbed from the collective during the day.
That hygiene is literal in a neurological sense as well. During sleep and deep rest, the brain's glymphatic system clears out neurotoxins, specifically beta amyloid, which accumulate during waking activity. Intense cognitive work produces more metabolic waste products. While we typically associate this clearing with sleep, waking rest and solitude also facilitate a reduction in norepinephrine, allowing the brain to recover. For the high-functioning mind, constant social stimulation keeps the brain in a high-alert sympathetic nervous system state, fight or flight, which inhibits this recovery process. They crave solitude because their brain is physically signaling a need for detoxification.
We must also discuss the rejection of social hierarchy. Intelligent minds tend to be nonconformist. They question authority and tradition. Most social gatherings are structured around unwritten hierarchical rules. Who is the alpha? Who needs to be impressed? What topics are taboo? The intelligent mind finds these games tedious and arbitrary. They often lack the desire to compete for social status because they derive their self-worth from internal competence rather than external validation. Solitude is the only space where hierarchy does not exist. Alone, they are neither leader nor follower. They are simply a consciousness existing in free space.
This nonconformity extends to their environment. Sensory processing sensitivity is a major factor. It's not just about people, it's about the environment people inhabit. Loud music, flashing lights, strong perfumes, these are common in social settings and can trigger a fight or flight response in the highly sensitive, intelligent brain. This is sensory gating failure. The brain fails to filter out irrelevant stimuli, so everything comes in at volume 10. Solitude allows them to control their environment completely. The lighting, the sound, the temperature. It is an act of environmental engineering to optimize their biological machine for performance rather than endurance.
There is a profound connection between solitude and creativity. History's greatest thinkers, Newton, Tesla, Dickinson, were notorious reclusives. This is the incubation effect. Complex problems are often solved not when we are actively working on them, but when we step away and let the subconscious mind process the data. This background processing is delicate and easily disrupted by social noise. The intelligent mind intuitively knows that its best ideas require a gestation period in silence. They protect their solitude because they are protecting their potential. To them, a weekend alone is not a void to be filled. It is a laboratory to be utilized.
Let's analyze the predictability factor. Intelligent people are pattern recognition machines. In social situations, human behavior is often erratic, emotional, and irrational. This unpredictability creates a cognitive load. The brain is constantly trying to build a predictive model of the interaction, but failing due to the variables. In solitude, or in interaction with static systems like books, code, or art, the variables are controlled. The intelligent mind finds rest in deterministic systems, where A leads to B. The chaos of human drama is a puzzle that often isn't worth the calories required to solve it.
Furthermore, we see a distinct difference in reward sensitivity. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of reward. Research suggests that introverted, highly intelligent people have a different sensitivity to dopamine than extroverts. While an extrovert gets a rush of dopamine from a loud party, the same amount of stimulation can cause the intelligent introvert to feel overstimulated and anxious. They are more sensitive to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter linked to focus, internal reflection, and calmness. Their brain chemistry literally rewards them for reading a book in a quiet room and punishes them for navigating a crowded bar.
It is also crucial to mention the boredom paradox. Intelligent people rarely get bored when alone, but they get excruciatingly bored in bad company. The internal library of an intelligent person is vast. They can entertain themselves for hours by mentally rotating geometric shapes, replaying a symphony, or debating a philosophical concept. When they are forced into a dull social interaction, they are being pulled away from a fascinating internal movie to watch a static screen. The pain of boredom in social settings is a physical sensation for them, a restless agitation that screams for escape.
So, if you are listening to this and recognizing yourself, understand this. Your desire for solitude is not a pathology. It is not a defect. It is a sophisticated adaptation. You are managing a high-performance engine that requires specific maintenance.
The guilt you feel when turning down an invitation is a social conditioning, not a moral failing. You are prioritizing the preservation of your mind. In a world that constantly demands your attention, reclaiming your solitude is a radical act of self-respect. It is the soil from which your insight grows.
We hope this exploration helps you navigate your own needs with more confidence and less apology. If you found value in this analysis, consider how you structure your own downtime. Are you truly resting or just avoiding? There is a difference. Thank you for lending us your time and your mind today. We will continue to dissect the anatomy of human behavior in future broadcasts. Until then, cherish your silence. It is where you are most powerful. Goodbye.